Hey guys, it's day 3, noon Pacific Standard Time, Wednesday. How is everybody? We are moving through this, and it has been so much fun. Such a pleasure to get to know you guys, read your comments. I've been replying to as many as I can, and it's been so great to see you really engaged and participating and doing your homework. I'm so impressed. Give yourself a huge round of applause for showing up for your life, showing up for what matters most. This is really hard for most people. I think that most people are so threatened, to even think about what they really want. And so, most of the time they're just like, I'd rather just rationalize and tell myself I'm fine. And like we talked about on day 1, to tell myself I don't want things, because then there's no accountability, right? If I'm fine and I don't want anything, I don't actually have to think about what I really want and therefore what I might need to do about it to get me out of my comfort zone. And that's the difference between amateurs and turning pro, right? Turning pro is all about, I'm taking this seriously, I'm going to double down, and I'm going to get out of my comfort zone, because no one's really craving their comfort zone. We're really craving that thing that's what we're reaching for. And I read a book recently, great book. It's called The Big Leap. You guys should read it. Really worth the read. The guy who wrote it, his name is Gay Hendricks, and he's worked with people like Michael Dell. He's worked with people like Bonnie Raitt. Actually, a few songwriters who worked with Kenny Loggins. He talks about it in the book. In any case, he talked about something just so fascinating to me. He was talking about fear and excitement. And he said, when you're afraid of something, the difference between fear and excitement is just breath. When you're afraid of something, you don't breathe usually. And he said, so whenever you notice that something comes up and you feel anxiety about it, he said, if you actually just start to breathe and you keep breathing, that fear will go from fear to almost like exhilaration. And that's the moment we see in movies where the person's like, they're feeling so overwhelmed and so up against the wall. And then they have this switch where they turn the fear into like, oh no, I'm actually going to do this. Let's do this. And then that's when they realize, like in that Alanis Morissette song where she talks about thank you, India. And she's like, that's when I realized, like the moment I let go of it, I got everything more than I could have handled. Like that's when you feel like the bottom drops out and now you're ready to soar. I had a woman on my podcast. Her name is Jen Sincero. She wrote a book called You Are a Badass. You guys ever heard of this book? It's one of the #1 best-selling books in the last few years. Millions of copies. And she was a songwriter, actually. She was living in a garage and she was eating cans of tuna fish every day. And she turned 40. And she said, I've rolled my eyes at everyone's advice. And I've rolled my eyes at self-help and coaches and mentors. And she said, but I'm freaking 40 and I'm living in a garage and I'm going to get past this. Like I am done. And sometimes that's a good thing, right? Sometimes we realize that this is a great quote, and it's not hers, but I read it somewhere. I think it's like a John Wooden quote, but the quote is, we live the lives that we are willing to tolerate. And so many of us, our tolerance is just way too high. Like your tolerance for pain and discomfort and dissatisfaction has been way too high for a long time. And so she got it and she said, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of my story. I'm sick of myself. I'm sick of living in this garage. And I know that there's more. And what wound up happening is she wound up doing everything she could get her hands on. She did workshops, she hired coaches, she read books, she did everything she could do. And she realized that her limiting beliefs were big. And one of her biggest limiting beliefs was this belief that if you were a real artist, you were starving. And that there was something about that was like glorified. How many people have ever heard that or felt that? And that sucks because it's just not true. I get to meet every single week on my podcast, twice a week. I get to meet lots of different artists. I've talked to Jenna Fisher and Mandy Moore, and I've talked to Lisa Loeb, and I've talked to people who are potters and screenwriters. I got to meet Brian Grazer, and I got to meet Stephen Levinson, who wrote my favorite musical, Dear Evan Hansen. Not starving, so far from starving, way on the other side of starving, like first class and beautiful hotel rooms and doing really beautiful art that's winning Tonys and touching people's lives and all of those things. Bobbi Brown was on my podcast. She's a makeup artist. She started out being a waitress and she sold a lipstick and it grew into this $billion empire. And her whole thing is about women feeling beautiful in their own skin. She's not starving. And she's made a lot of art. She's made a lot of things and things that she loves to do. So this idea that real artists are starving was really what was in Jen's way, and she decided to crack through that. So there's a lot going on here, and you'll notice that for me, one of the main reasons that I love doing this, and you can tell, like, I love doing this, I love doing my podcast, is because one of my greatest feelings of alignment in my life is when I'm doing this kind of work and helping people really to see past what's in the way. And then what I love to do is not just give you motivation, but really get nitty gritty and like, let's look at what you're gonna do like today and tomorrow, because we want to take the psychology of it, which is 80%, and then we want to direct you so that instead of working hard, you're working smart. Who's with me? So today we're going to talk about what's been my process, and I think that this process will help. And this is essentially why I wound up building a 6-month mentorship program, because I know the way we are as human beings, and I know that when people are ready to have a breakthrough, it's consistent action, right? It's consistent. It's like wearing braces, right? Like your jaw, this is actually the toughest bone in your body, but your teeth are in your jaw, right? So when you have crooked teeth, and I actually do, because I didn't wear my bottom retainer, I only wore my top ones. I had braces on top and bottom, but this is the point. Like you wear braces I wore them for 3 years, and I took the retainer off and they went right back. Right? It went right back. So it's like we can have as many good high hopes as we want, but the very best course of action is to make sure that we don't assume that we will just by chance be inspired every day, but we set ourselves up to succeed. I always find it fascinating how the people that we look up to, they're the ones who have a nutritionist, they have a therapist, they have a personal trainer, but we don't need it. We're good. But the people who are performing up here, and those are the ones you say like, they should be good now. They should be in a coasting phase. There's no coasting. So this is what you're getting a taste of over these 5 days. And I hope that you guys are enjoying it, because I certainly am. So we're going to dive in now. First, I want to start with the homework. So as far as the homework goes, I saw that you guys did some research, which is fantastic. I was reading what you guys found. It seems a lot of people are finding really cool songs from different ads and different shows. Grey's Anatomy has come up, of course. I want to give you one other place where you can go. I didn't want to overwhelm you because you're learning new tools here, but there's an incredible website called TuneFind.com. And Angela or John, if you're in the chat, you can put that in the chat. TuneFind. And TuneFind is the television, movies, and games portal. So iSpot TV is where you're going to find mostly brands and advertising. If you go to TuneFind, you can type in any show, right? You choose what show, Downton Abbey, New Girl, anything from 15 years ago to now. You're going to find artists, you're going to find episodes, you're going to find what songs were in what movies, what shows, and who sang it. You're also going to find games, video games. I don't know how much you guys know about all three of those things, but games are also a place where artists are getting licensed. At our last event, which was just last week, we call that event Sync Keepers, where we bring about 15 music supervisors to come in person and listen to our artists and give them some feedback. And a lot of people make beautiful connections there. And a few of our artists, Nancy was there last year and met Christina Benson. And from that panel, followed up with her, and they got a Sephora spot. So super proud of Nancy. And it's a great spot. Great song too. She co-wrote and had it produced with another one of our course members, Zion, who's really talented. In any case, one of the panelists on our event last week works for Activision, and he talked about all the games, and he talked about how last year they did over 600 licenses last year for one game. So that's just a whole nother opportunity. And this is what I want you to know, is that successful people, they don't see the problem, they see opportunity everywhere. Okay, we're going to talk about how we really start to not only see that, but how we sort of make a beeline for that and to do it. You know, if I were to talk to you guys about like, let's land on the moon, you know, let's figure out a way to land on the moon. It sounds impossible, but even that, people did it, right? People sat down, and we now can point to people who've done that. With music licensing, I love how people are like, no way, it's not doable. I mean, it's happening every second. Right? Like it's happening every second. So it's not like we're trying to find a cure for a disease. and it's never happened yet. And even that, so many people wake up every day, scientists, and they're still trying to find cures for things, even though that particular thing hasn't been cured. With this is easy. This is shooting fish in a barrel. People are getting music license all the time. So we know that this exists, and we don't want to have hope that it's possible. We want to have certainty. Let's say that you were going into surgery. Do you want your doctor to say to you, so we're about to go in the OR, and I hope I'm going to see you in like 2 hours, and I'm hoping it's going to go okay. Nope. You're going to be like, get me off this gurney because I'm done. Like, you're not my doctor, right? You want your doctor to be like, we're going into the operating room and I'm going to see you in 2 hours and it's going to be great. All right, get a good night's sleep, right? And then they give you the anesthetic. So you don't want hope. You want absolute certainty. So sometimes the best way that we can get absolute certainty when we are full of like our own self-doubt and we're not sure and we can't see the road ahead because people around us have not necessarily actualized that, is we want to get as close as possible to people who live that, who breathe that. So it becomes something like, this is part of your culture, this is part of your vernacular, and then you're feeding off of that, which again is why I created a 6-month program, because I want people to be immersed in that, because there is no reason why this is something that people should go, well, I wanted to do that my whole life, but there was never a way to make money with music, so I decided to sell insurance. And I did that because that's really all that really does exist, and it's a fact that nobody makes it in music. Not true. Not true. So we have to look at what we can do about it. So TuneFind is a great place for you to find examples of songs that have been used in film, television, and games. iSpot TV is a good place for you to find songs in ads. Now, if you're sort of like looking through and you don't know what to look for, sometimes you're going to find random kinds of cues. You also can go to YouTube and you can type in ads for Coca-Cola, and you're going to find, ads for Coca-Cola 2019. You're going to find 3. Some might be instrumental songs, a couple might be artists. And then you can do other things. You can be researching. There's a magazine called Adweek, and they have all different kinds of articles where they talk about like the 10 best, Super Bowl ads from last year, the top 20 women in advertising, and they'll talk about what brands they work on. And that's a really good way to start to get to know who the players are, who the people are. And similar to, my husband does fantasy football and fantasy baseball. He's actually obsessed with fantasy baseball. I always say to him, honey, if you spent as much time as you do on fantasy baseball doing anything else, whether it was doing yoga or building a business, you would be like the best yogi ever, or like a multi-million. Like, he spends so much time on fantasy baseball. He loves it. So that fantasy baseball is my metaphor, because for me, music licensing became my fantasy baseball. I became obsessed with it. I wanted to know, what are the names of the agencies and who are the people who work there? And so then I could tell you who works at McGarry Bowen and who just left McGarry Bowen Chicago and she just moved to BBDO, or this one lived in San Francisco and now she's at David and Goliath. Like, I became obsessed with knowing who these people were. And then TV and film is way easier because it's a lot smaller. If you think of advertising and how many opportunities are out there for advertising, somebody in the chat was like, what if I live in Australia? First of all, Anthony Neves was one of our students. He lives in Australia. He got an $80,000 placement in Coors Light. You don't need to live in LA. You don't need to live in Nashville. You could be anywhere as long as you have Wi-Fi and could send an email. The bottom line, though, is that there are also, it seems, I don't know if the word is actually infinite, but it seems like a crazy amount of opportunities outside of the US. When it comes to ads, we're talking about agencies in San Francisco, agencies in Chicago, New York, LA, but there's also ad agencies doing work in Milan, the Czech Republic, Vancouver, Toronto, South America, all over, right? Japan. We've done a license in Korea. We did a license, I said Czech Republic because we did a license for a supermarket. There was a $30,000 spot. I did a license for Bonds, which is their like Gap. They have like a clothing line. In Australia, they use a song of mine called Good Good Feeling. It seems endless how many opportunities there are for ads all over the world. Film and TV, it's much more finite. You're talking about, there's like a core, right? You've got a few networks. Then certain music supervisors work for the networks, and certain music supervisors are hired as third parties to work out individual shows. And after a while, you get to know, just like if you did fantasy baseball, you get to know the players. And fantasy baseball is a good analogy because there's tons of teams. You're talking about, not every city has a team, but almost every city has a team. And then how many players are on every team, and how many players are no longer there, but were drafted and used to be. Like, people know their stats, how many runs they did in game 7. Like, you can absorb this. You can figure this out. It is not that difficult. So you want to know who it is that needs the stuff. What do they need? And you want to set yourself up for success. And the reason I'm just mentioning all of these things to think about is because, again, I want to paint the picture for you that actually is reality. It's my reality. And so every day when I wake up, I'm not screwing around, because I'm aware that right now, all over the world in different time zones, there are people looking for music. And I know that I have songs that they need, right? And so what I've been doing since I started, before I had a lot of songs, is I was like, I want to get ahead of it and create a body of work so I can consistently keep delivering what I know that they need, and get ahead of it and get to it. And no excuses, right? No excuses. Okay, so today we're going to talk about, first of all, tell me in the chat real quick. Just tell me in the chat what you found. You did research. So what consistencies did you find in TV versus ads? Was there anything consistent as far as lyrics? Was there anything consistent that you found in terms of instrumentation? Did you find that songs for TV and film had more, there was songs that had more pads and sort of like had builds that were maybe slower, and other times it was sort of, because film and TV songs can also be up tempo, but I feel like more than not you're going to find ads that are a little bit more in the sort of up tempo vibe. And then what about lyrics? Are you finding any kind of consistencies in lyrics? I just want to see what you're going to say here. Music that evokes emotion. Cool. Ads are upbeat and more synthy. There's a lot of synthy stuff. And I asked a friend of mine who works at Deutsch, which is a big ad agency. I said to him, Robert, why all the synths? And he said, well, I'm 44. And he said, most of the executives are in their 40s, and we grew up in the 80s, and we want to bring it back. And I was like, that makes sense. It really does. It really makes sense. And then it makes sense why we see this trend now of stuff that sounds kind of 80s, because a lot of the people choosing music for ads grew up in the 80s. They have that nostalgia. They like pulling that in. And then a lot of record labels wind up signing those bands, and it's just like a nice loop. So I appreciate synths. I grew up in the 80s. Empowerment is a theme that Tom says he sees. Yes, empowerment is definitely something that we can use songs about. And this is what I was saying yesterday. Love songs, write them whenever you want. I get it. But that is so not really the crux, right? Like, I would say that if you want to be successful with sync licensing, it's about telling all the other stories that need to get told. Besides, I'm in love with this person and they don't see me. We need to write other songs. We need to tell other stories, and those are the moments where they're going to feature it, because that's what they need help sharing. That's the thing that they really need to help in telling that story. Ads are simple, bright, energetic. I heard a lot of acoustic guitars, catchphrase type lyrics. Yeah, telling about the stories, right? Isn't that just a cool, when I got that, and you guys, I didn't have Kathy Heller, right? I didn't have me, I wasn't me 10 years ahead talking to me then. I was just sort of figuring out. I didn't have anyone to share this with me. I was doing this on my own, which took me a couple of years, which is why everything I teach you in this challenge, and everything I teach in the 6-month program is everything I have built, that I found clues along the way. Even the relationships, right, with the music supervisors, like each one, it was like, this one took like 4 years to finally get this one, where we actually connected. Maybe I sent an email here, and maybe I saw them at a panel discussion here, maybe then I flew to San Francisco there, and finally, and so I've been able to collect these relationships and share those relationships with people. And I think that that's something that we do in the program that other places don't do. I think that in other places, they'll send your music through, but you won't necessarily get to connect directly. So I like that we do that, because I think someone needs to help be that person. But those things about like catchphrases, like that was eye-opening to me. It was like, yeah, make it simple, right? Okay, I actually came out with a reroute. Remember yesterday I played songs and it crashed? So we had the internet guy come this morning, so hopefully nothing crashes. We're plugged directly into the Ethernet. We're not in Wi-Fi, so hopefully it's all good. But I did find a workaround because my team said, why don't you just play it from your phone? I want to play you a couple songs from my phone. How does that sound? I just want to share with you a couple songs that I think really stand out to me. Some of the songs that I found along my way when I was doing this research. And these are not songs from our artists. These are songs from other artists that I remember putting these in my playlist. And I still think these are the ones that I still think stand up. So I'm going to play it from my phone. I tested this out before, and I think you guys are going to be able to hear it. You let me know. And if not, you can listen to this on your own time. So this is a song I actually mentioned yesterday that I love. I think this is like a brilliant song. The second anyone hears it, they want to use it for something. It's perfect for ads. It was actually in an Apple spot. This is what got them on the map. They made a ton of money on that spot. Indie band. They're called Tune Yards. And the song is called Water Fountain. Anyone know this song? Let's listen to it. Can you guys hear it? Can you guys hear it? All right, I love that song. Can anyone tell me, why does that work? What is it about that works? Anyone want to tell me? Why does it work? And then I'll tell you why I think it works. Who knows why this song works? Cool, a lot of you know Tune Yards, awesome. Why does it work? It's catchy, yeah. Why else does it work? Syncopation is really good. A beat, super fun, yeah, lively. Okay, it's nonsensical, right? No water in the water fountain. What the hell does it mean? It's so we don't know what it means that it can go anywhere, because it's just sort of like, how many of you know the song Scatman's World? Beep, bop, 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 ba da da, beep, bop, right? It's like, it's just Scatman's World. What does it mean? Who knows, right? I guess he's scatting, right? Like Ella Fitzgerald used to do. So he's calling it Scatman's World. And it's just like, that's the same thing with Water Fountain. No water in. What about the song It's All About That Bass? That can go anywhere, right? That can be anything. Like that's where the whole song is about. We're just cooking up a vibe, right? We're just making a big bowl of vibe. And we're just like delivering it. And then the ad agency goes, I don't need to get it. It's like not meant to be gotten. It's just a vibe. It's like you're just handing me fun, silly quirkiness, and I'm just going cool all day. Like all day I can license that song. All freaking day. So I have a song like that too called Good Good Feeling, but mine's a little bit more, it says Good Good Feeling, which is a little bit more of like a straight to it universal theme. Let me play you, you know what, I'll play you that one right now. Okay, this is my song called Good Good Feeling. We've licensed this several times. The last time we licensed this was to Nordstrom. Okay, check this out. All right, thanks guys. So that's one of my songs. Yeah, so I played it a little longer also because I wanted you to hear the sections. So why does that song work for licensing? Why does that work? And by the way, okay, we licensed this in Nordstrom. That was also the same song that we licensed to that spot for Bonds, which is the Australian, it's like their Gap clothes. It's like their big retail. That's their big label. So we licensed it to a commercial for Bonds. So why does that work? It's obvious, right? It feels good. It's fun. It's silly. It's universal. It's not talking about my Aunt Jamie who lives on Bluebell Lane. It's not slow. It's got moving parts. It's dynamic. It's got lots of energy. It's perfect. And it's saying like, I want it. I gotta have it. And if you're a brand putting something out there, wouldn't you love? Now, all the people who want to roll their eyes, and you're not here, I know, because you guys are my people. I tell you, people self-select. We know where we're supposed to be, and then water seeks its own level. There's a lot of people out there who would be like, through the years, oh my God, I can't believe you write songs and Nordstrom licensed your song. Like, good for you. How sad, you know? And I'm like, yeah, it's so sad that I made like all that money to have the best day of my life. Can anyone hear how much fun that may have been to record that? Like, we were laughing so hard because I decided to put on an English accent, God knows why. And Adrienne, who was my producer, was like, what are you doing? That's the funniest thing. And I was like, I'm just kidding. And I did it for one take as a joke. And she goes, keep it. She's like, whatever that is, you're doing it. And I was like, good, I like it. You know, and she's like, it's just do it. And I laughed so hard. And when we left the studio that day, I was like, what a fun life. Like, I'm so lucky I got to play and be silly and get out of my serious artist face. And there are other times where I sit down at the piano. I put the song Be Brave in that list yesterday. Be Brave is it's a song about being scared to let go. And my parents broke up and now I'm in this marriage and am I going to be able to hold on? And it's like, please promise we won't break. And I wrote that at the piano, and it's sad. And there's times for that. And that did get licensed to TV and film. But the point is, it's so fun to just be silly sometimes and to let go of our ego and just play. And the fact, I mean, it blows my mind, actually, the fact that people will pay me to have such a good day. Like, any day of the week, if you were like, hey, Kat, do you want to write a song like that or go to Disneyland? I'd be like, I want to go write a song like that because it is so fun. And it's so easy to be silly. We just forgot, we forgot to do that a long time ago. Okay, I want to play you something else. Okay, so I want to play you something else that I love. Here's another great song for licensing. This is a song by a band called Stolen Jars. It's called Driving. Great song. Why does that song work for licensing? So obvious, right? First of all, the lyric in the chorus is, let's just go drive for days and days. Let's just go drive for days and days. That's what she says. So how many times are you swept up with this person and you just don't want the day to end and you're like, let's just keep, you picture like pulling into the house and you're like, no, let's just keep going. Let's just keep driving. Let's just never let it end. It's just, that's it. Now, the other reason that song works, probably the primary reason I played you that, is because it starts out and, if you go back and listen to that song, it's such a good education. Listen. Okay, listen to the pieces and the builds. This is one section. And it's really interesting. Oh, sticks. And then double time. Added the more guitars. Clap. Listen to the vocal. Clap, stick. Good. Okay, great song. It's all those pieces. All those pieces. Remember we talked about there needs to be dynamics. It's so good. When I play these songs for you, these are like, these are the best of, right? Like if you, Tune Yards, Apple, okay, the Apple is, they're so selective. They're gonna pay the most amount of money. You're looking for the song that's like, this is what I'm showing you right now. Okay, not everyone's gonna be able to create this, but you can work on it and you can understand like why it's working. And forever, right? Like people are always like, well, what are you doing? You're not being original. You're listening to other people. That's called learning anything, right? Like, how do you learn to play guitar? You have a teacher and the teacher teaches you like different kinds of things to listen for. And maybe you watch Jimi Hendrix and maybe this is called being a grown-up, right? And this is what we do, right? How many people have said that quote, you know, mediocre artists borrow from other artists and great artists steal from other artists? Like, don't steal melodies, right? You know, don't do the blurred lines thing, but to be inspired by this is called the world. You know, everybody wants, the Beatles wanted to sound like the Americans and Elvis, and this is just called the way it is to be inspired by what's great. This is what anyone's doing. Film students are studying film, right? They're in school looking at Scorsese, looking at Orson Welles movies. Literature students are reading great books. Do you just go off in a vacuum and sit on a mountain and go, I don't need anything? Because I just don't. I'm sorry. I woke up and then I just knew. And here's what that really says. And if you didn't just know, you're not talented. That's crap. That's not true. That's really not true. It's not like if you didn't get it naturally, you're an idiot. No, most of the people that we look up to, they crafted their way to where they are, right? There's a mastery. So let's just get clear about that. Okay, so now we went over some research. There's so much more stuff that we could get into. There's more songs. I'll play you one more. I'm gonna play you one more, I'll tell you why. Because this song is not as happy-go-lucky, and I want you to hear things that are like a mixture. So where to go? Oh, did I even look it up? Here, it should be right here. Listen to this. Ready? I want you to listen to the bridge. Here we go. I'm lost and found. Oh, I'm lost and found. So this is a really important section. You're going to love this section. You're going to be able to use it. Okay, you got it. Okay, so if I were to pick sort of like a go-to top 10 playlist for ads and a top 10 playlist for film and TV, I would put Tune Yards on my top 10 ads playlist, and I would put the song Lost and Found on my playlist for film and TV, because it's building, because it's the lyric, or I am lost and found, right? And it's like, it's not specific, and yet we know what that means, right? It's just, it works for film and TV so well. It's a bigger story that she's telling, and the builds are so beautiful, right? Okay, so there's a lot to do in terms of the research. Now let's talk about my process, okay? We're gonna talk about the songwriting process that I have used, and this is what really helped me. A lot of times what we do is we wake up and we're like, what am I supposed to do? I know I'm supposed to do something. And people will often say to you that if you wanna be successful, don't work in your business, work on your business, right? If you're working in your business, sometimes you're like, you can get so lost. You could go down a rabbit hole and spend 15 hours trying to find the right snare, right? And then you wake up the next day and you're like, do I have a system? Do I have a process? Do I have anything I do that helps me actually get a project finished? So we want to have a system. So I'm gonna share with you what my method is, okay? So first of all, research. We just did that. We showed you, we shared how I do research, okay? We want to research, we want to be inspired. We want to see what the marketplace is loving, what our clients are needing, what stories they're telling. We want to get inspired by that. We want to let that wash over us. So research. The next thing is, and I'm going to read these off and then we'll talk about them as individual things. We want to do a brain dump. I'm going to tell you what that means. We want to do a co-write. I'll tell you why. We want to do studio prep and record the song. And then we want to pitch the song. Okay, so you're going to research, brain dump, co-write, studio prep, record, and pitch. There's 5 parts. This is like the 5-part Kathy method, okay? So research, we know what that looks like. What's the second thing? So after you've done the research, you should walk away with an idea of what some of these themes are, right? That's what I did. I was like, oh, where do you think I found these themes, right? It's like, I started recognizing, oh God, TV and film, there's a lot of like, I'll be there for you, the friend song, but there's like so much of that in television shows. And I realized what those storylines were, and I made notes. I started writing that down. For then ads, I started writing down themes. So research led me to a theme. So the first thing I would do is research, then I would choose what I'm writing about. Like from this research, what story am I telling? And I open up my laptop, blank Google Doc, Evernote, however you want to do it. You could even do it in your phone on notes if you want. But I would open up a blank Google Doc and I would brain dump. And the brain dump is so important for the whole creative process, because what I did before this, before I understood how to brain dump, is I would sit down and I would intend that I was going to sit down and write a song. And then, of course, I would get frustrated and I would walk away. And I'd say, forget it, I can't write a song. As opposed to giving myself the process and the time to be creative and the time to play. Have you ever watched a person's, like a visual artist, when they're sketching something, they don't take a pencil, put it on a paper, draw a perfect circle, finish it and go, here you go. They go around and around and around the circle, right? You know what I'm talking about? Then they go around and around and around the part of the body. Then they go around and around. They keep drawing the hand, draw the hand again, draw the hand again, draw the. And then when you step back, you see this finished sketch, but it starts off, right? They just keep going around it. Why is that? Because they're not setting themselves up to take a pencil and draw the circle. They're drawing it out. It's sort of like they developed the circle. They developed the circle, and then at the end, you see the line get darker. And then they, you know, maybe if it was like crooked over here, by the end, they got it. Okay, that's the creative process, is the messy part. The messy part has to be in the process. So the brain dump is great, because instead of sitting down with my quill and my monocle and being like, I am now going to write out a song, which doesn't happen, I would be like, first, let me just brain dump. So brain dump to me is like, okay, I write the theme at the top. You know, let's say I'm writing over, you know, empowerment. Somebody said that before. I would just write anything that comes to me, a lyric idea, a story somebody told me, a quote that I think is great, a color that it makes me think of, red, fierce, magenta. I would just like go like brain dump. And it's supposed to be a dump. It's not supposed to be pretty. And I would just let myself, blah, 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 blah. This was the beginning of my success, because I allowed myself to be mediocre and imperfect. And this is so important. We are not supposed to edit while we are being creative. Have you ever seen a director create the process of a movie? Let's say Steven Spielberg goes out to shoot something. They might shoot every scene 15 different ways. He's like, let's just get it again. You know, this time when you say the line, jump up and down. This time when she says the line, walk out and slam the door. Let's just get it. Let's just get every possible way we can do this scene. Let's get it in the dark. Let's get it with the lights on. Let's get it in the rain. Like, get it, just shoot, just shoot it. And then what happens? Maybe they shoot the movie. I'm going to use rough numbers for easy math. Let's say they shoot the movie for 5 months. They don't edit the movie for 5 months. They edit the movie for twice as long. Editors have a big job. They don't give them, if they have an hour, and if they have a 90-minute movie, they don't give them 90 minutes of footage. They give them like 1,700 hours of footage, and they go, figure it out. Have a good night. Have a good night, right? And the editor's job is to find the movie. Like, where the hell is this movie? You want me to just find this movie? That's why editors are so awesome. They're so awesome. And so are creators, right? And one can't do their job without the other. We don't get that. We do not get that. And this is part of what I teach people to do in my program, and what I'm telling you now. You have to let yourself make mediocre things, or else you'll never make something brilliant. You have to commit that to yourself, and you have to tell that little kid inside of you, I'm so sorry for demanding that you make brilliant things, because there's no way you can win. Like, you're it's okay. You could be messy, and then amazing things are going to come. So you make a brain dump, and then you know what you do? You peace out. You take the day off. I brain dump for like an hour, whatever, or maybe 35, whatever, till I'm exhausted, right? Till nothing else comes. Close that laptop. Don't even look at it. Don't judge it. Don't critique it. It's not what it's there for. Shooting a movie, editing a movie. Shooting, editing. We're not editing. We're just brain dump. Then I go back the next day, and I take my highlighter tool in the laptop. You know, you click on that button, and I highlight anything after a night's sleep that stands out. Oh, I love that word. I love that word. Oh, fierce. Yeah. Oh, that line I wrote about, you know, whatever. And you just highlight whatever works. You're like a detective going back to a crime scene. You're like, oh, what's this? This I can use, right? And then the next part comes, which is co-write. Now, why do I tell you to co-write? Because have you ever heard the phrase, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts it's made of? And it is. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So when you meet with a co-writer, you get another person's feedback, which does so much to make sure that that song comes to life. Let's say I have a good idea. I want a sounding board. or else sometimes I've had ideas that I thought were stupid and I play them for someone and like, that's really good. You should develop that. I'm like, I should? I thought it was dumb. And they're like, don't let that sit in your phone on like a voice memo. You should develop that. And that does everything, right? Does everything for me. The other reason is because of accountability. Do you know that they've done studies? It turns out you're not 16 times more likely to get results with accountability. You're not 47 more times likely to get results with accountability. You are 95% more likely to get the result that you are intending if you are accountable to somebody else. That's the mic drop right there. And that's the other reason I created this program, because people need accountability. It's good to be a little afraid of letting someone down, just a little, because otherwise you let yourself down, and you can't do that. You cannot. It's just happened too many times already, and you don't deserve it. And so sometimes a little social pressure is positive. So I would make a co-write, because I can't leave her sitting there. She's there. And students in our program sometimes co-write over Zoom video, which is great. But I found, and it's hard, by the way, you have to find a co-writer who's committed, who doesn't sleep in till 2, and you can't find someone who shows up and goes, why were we doing this anyway? Music doesn't pay. There's no opportunities. No, you need to find a like-minded person who's headed in the same place so that you know where you're headed, right? And you guys together can get there. And then during the co-write, I would say do what's best for the song. Get your ego out of the way and do what's best for the song. So I wouldn't be worried about you each getting 50% of the ideas in the song. I would just sit together and say, here's what we want to both create. How can we best create that? And the reason I love the brain dump, and I would ask my co-writer to also do it, is so that when we show up for the co-write, we've already agreed on 3 days before, this is the song we're writing, this is the theme. And we've both already spent some time creatively thinking about that theme. So when we get to the co-write, we just get there faster. We're prepared. What did I talk about? Successful people anticipate. So I would always anticipate, because I don't want to sit at the co-write, wind up spending 45 minutes talking about what happened to us both last night, then decide what we should write about. And then we're both in front of each other trying to come up with something to say. It's just a waste, right? So it's all about, how do we reverse engineer? Remember I told you I started out with the Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind? I'm always doing that. Always. These are the successful habits, right? So that's co-write. The next thing is your studio prep and recording session. When you want to record a song, you want to get to where you're going. And a lot of times I see people recording a song with a producer and they're like, and it didn't work. And then my question is always like, was the producer on the same page? Were you all clear, right? Because you could give someone a work tape, a vocal and a guitar, and the person has a totally different way of producing it than you had in your head. And now you're 6 hours into the session, you've already paid for the studio time, and you're like, oh, forget it. I guess this is going to be a ballad. And I really wanted to pitch this for Pepsi, right? Or whatever. So we need to make sure that our producer is set up to win. So what I like to do is bring 3 reference tracks to the studio, listen with our eyes closed, you, your co-writer, and the producer, close your eyes, listen, and tell the producer, this is what I love about this song. It's not even the lyrics. It's not, the lyrics are about something totally different. I like this, just this rising right here. What is that? You can ask the producer. You could say, am I right? Is what's making this move all of the vocal padding? What is it? Let's listen for it. This is what I love about this track. 3 of them. Here's another song. The reason I love this is because it's like big, 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 and then it drops out, and then the chorus comes back, and I want to do that. And then this song, you go, I like where there's like 4 on the floor. I like this song because of that. I want to start with 4 on the floor, right? That's really helpful. That's really, really helpful to making sure that you're all going to get to where you're going. If you want to go somewhere, let's say you're going to get in an Uber. So you need to tell the driver, they tell you like, where are you headed? And then they can show you on the map how many minutes it's going to take. And they show the driver how to get from where you live to where that is. So you have to start with where you are, but you also have to know where you're headed, you know? So a lot of times people creatively, they lose form over substance. They're so in a detail that they're forgetting a process, and then they're like they're like stuck, right? So we already talked about research, brain dump, co-write, studio prep. And then the last piece is pitching music. The last piece is pitching music. And when you're going to pitch music, so there's a few things you need to think about. Where is this going to go? Like, where does this make a good home? And I would have thought that you know that from the beginning, right? Because if you're doing research, you know, if I'm writing this kind of a song and I've already invested the time in my brain dump and my co-write and the recording heading in this direction, I should know where that home is. I love this show, whatever. I love Mindy Kaling's new show. I want it to be there. And another good strategy is if you went to, I'm trying to think how to say it. If you went to Vegas and you're playing roulette, so if you put money on 14, unless the ball lands on 14, you don't win, right? So you want to have money on as many numbers as possible, right? And then your chances are just higher of winning. So when you are creating music, I would try to think about how can I write a song that would be really not just so specific. Like there are certain shows that are set in New Orleans, let's say. So if you write a song with that kind of flair, you're going to limit where it can get placed. But if you write a song like that Tune Yard song, a lot of places, a lot of brands could use that. If you write a song like that Katie Herzig Lost and Found, that could go kind of anywhere. I've been watching that song get licensed over and over for the last like 11 years, or since it came out around that time. It just keeps going. I hear it in trailers, I hear it constantly. I just heard it in the new trailer for that movie with the dog. What is the movie? The dog is narrating it, the racing. I heard it in a trailer for that. So it's constantly being used. So you want to think about that when you're writing a track. And then as far as, so you want to know where you're pitching it to. And then we want to do every single thing that we can to think about being a resource to the people that we are reaching out to, as opposed to looking for handouts and opportunities, right? So tomorrow we're going to talk even in more depth about pitching, but we're going to talk a little bit about it right now. So first of all, I want you to know, and this is true about everything. This isn't just true about music, but in LA, if you want to send music to a music supervisor or a licensing agency or a talent agency like CAA, right on their website, it says, we don't take unsolicited material. And it's the same thing if you were a playwright, same thing if you were an actor. There's no difference, right? So how do all these people find work? And by the way, does anyone know why people don't take unsolicited material? Because people ask me that all the time. A lot of you have DM'd me, there's 8,000 people in this challenge. Can you listen to my song? I get requests for that constantly. Why do people not take unsolicited material? Does anyone know why? Does anyone know why people don't take unsolicited material? So somebody said copywriting. So there's two reasons. One is a legal reason. I think that's what you're getting at. And the other one is a logistical reason. Okay, let's talk about the legal reason. If you sent someone music, right? And they were like, yeah, doors are open. We'll listen to anything. We'll read your script. Let's say you're a screenwriter. We'll take your show ideas. If you're pitching for, you want to be a TV writer, we'll take your songs. You send us whatever. We take it all day. Problem is that what happened so many times. In fact, Omnicom, which is a huge conglomerate, they own TBWA, Chiat Day, BBDO, DDB. They own a ton of ad agencies. They spent over $40 million in legal battles over issues with music last year, or actually it was the year before. So they wound up doing a pre-clear, and they reached out to a few of us licensing agents and said, can you make sure that you have pre-cleared everything? And then that is the only thing now we're taking. From pre-cleared people who we trust, we're not taking any, because in fact, they don't have any other lawsuits like that. Like they have a lawsuit here and there, but not like that. Like it's crazy. So it happens. I have a friend who wrote a script that was almost the same movie as Tropic Thunder. And he sent it in and he sued them. He sued the studio because he was like, on this day, 2 years before that movie came out, I sent you the script. And then suspiciously, it's like almost identical. They paid him. He had a lawsuit. So it's a problem to just take creative, it's intellectual property. You can't just take everyone's intellectual property in. That's a big problem, number one. Logistical reason is number two, because when you're just sending people stuff, if they actually did it and listened to everything that came in, they would have absolutely no time to either live their life, do their work, or make sure their dog gets to the vet. Like logistically, they don't have that. They have, and by the way, while they're
getting stacks like this of unsolicited material. They have stacks of actual work that has to get done, right? So then how do people do it? So my friend Alex Banayan wrote a book called The Third Door. How many of you know this book, The Third Door? How many of you know this book called The Third Door? So The Third Door is a book about how there's always a way. There's always a way in. And Alex wrote this book. And in this book, he wound up securing himself private one-on-one interviews with Lady Gaga, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Maya Angelou, before she passed away. It took him years, like 7 years to get to complete the book, and took like 10 or 11 months to get to each person. He got to Bill Gates. He wound up getting in there. And the book is about how he interviewed Steven Spielberg also. And the book is about how some people take the first door and some people take the second, and then there's the people who take the third door. And I'm going to tell you what that looks like. So the first door, just to give you an analogy, you go to a club, right? Let's say you go to a club that everyone wants to go to, and you go, why are we going? You can't get in. And you show up and the lines are on the block. And some people, like schmucks, like they stand on that line, you know, they do it every Saturday night. They just stand there. There's always going to be those people. And a portion of those people maybe, you know, get in, but a lot of people are just standing in a line. And there's a lot of people who just see that as the only door. The second door, right? That's the first door. The second door is the people who get in, they get past the line because their last name is Kardashian. They get past the line because they know, right? Like that's the second door. But then there's the third door. Then there's the third door, which is the door for people who don't have a famous last name. They're not going to stand in line, but they're going to find another way in. They are going to find another way because there is always a way, right? And so that's what Alex did in this book. And that was, by the way, the reason, not only did he have to do that to get these interviews, but every time he interviewed one of these people, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Steven Spielberg, Lady Gaga, that was the crux of what actually made them succeed, was this unrelenting persistence to figure out how to be super smart and get in through the third door. So I want to show you what I did to break through the third door and what I continue to do. So I'm going to show you this. So this is not high quality stuff here. This is just sort of I call it being scrappy. Like you just go ahead and you get stuff done. So when I was starting out, again, just like everyone else, I was like, I want to meet the people who are choosing music for this and this. And you can send emails, and why would they read the email? You know what I mean? Like they don't know the person's name, right? So there's an art to that, and we can talk about how to make that happen. But initially, there's just so much, it's hard to break through, right? So I started to think, I got to do other stuff. Like I got to figure out a way. And what most people do when they send emails is they just send people homework to do. They're like, hi, person I don't know. I am this person and I'm from this place and I made this EP and this EP and I've written this song and this song. And it's like this long list of this person just talking about themselves. And they're like, could you listen to my songs? Have a nice day. So that's like the absolute worst thing that a person can do if they actually want a response. Because think about if you went to a party, right? And you met somebody. Would you walk over to this person and you say hello and you go, hey, what's your name? And they're like, hey, my name's Teresa. And you're like, hey, Teresa, do you have 20 minutes? Sit down. So my name is Cathy Heller, and let me tell you everything about me, and let me just talk about myself. And then, hey, do you want to help me? No? You're so rude. What's wrong with you? Like that's, again, is that being empathetic? No, it doesn't work, right? So we want to always, 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 always think about how to put ourselves in this other person's shoes and never feel entitled, like anyone owes us anything. No, it's our job to anticipate. And what do successful people do? They solve problems, right? They're constantly thinking about what this person needs, putting themselves in that person's shoes. So that's why we want to have already done the research to figure out what kind of music they need creatively. We also want to understand from a licensing perspective, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, how to be of service, right? Not only, hey, sir, miss, do I already know what you're working on? And by the way, every person who comes on our panels, the first thing they say is, before you send me music, do your research, know what I need. Don't send me a song that I don't need. That's a good way for me to block you because I know that you're just in it for yourself. You're not really concerned about what I'm working on. Happens every time. Ask any of our artists who've come, that's what they say. So you do the research, but then you also want to think, how else can I help this person? Well, if this person is working really hard to try to find music for NCIS or Scandal or whatever show, it's not on anymore, but it came to my mind. I want to know what they need, but I also want to know that they're really busy. And so how else can I help? Well, I can help because I can let them know the song is easy to clear. It's one stop. We can talk tomorrow about what that means. So thinking about that, but what else can I do, right? When I send an email, should I talk about myself? This person didn't ask to be emailed. Should I get into details about me? Should I talk about business? Should I ask a person for help who doesn't know me? I want you to understand that the way that people work is we need an emotional bank account. So for every 7 deposits you make with a person, you can expect a withdrawal. Remember that. For every 7 deposits you make, you can get a withdrawal. So what most people do is they go right to the ask, don't they? And I have to say, it sucks. Like, I'm on the receiving end of that. And then sometimes people will follow up. And I let's say I didn't respond. They'll be like, "You're such an egomaniac." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're a fascinating person." And we see artists like that all the time. And I know those people they just don't get it, you know? So I don't take it personally. But I think it's fascinating how people are so self-absorbed. They want you to help them. You don't owe them anything. They're not thinking about what you need or what could help solve your problems or how to make even a human connection with you. So everything is relationships, right? So we want to connect with this person. And remember I said how everything is like proximity, right? Like if you find someone who's successful, you get as close to that person as possible. Because if you had a father who ran Disney soundtracks, that would help, right? If you had a neighbor who worked on the music department for Paramount, it helps, right? If it's who you know, well, you can just make friends. You've made friends before. You made friends in summer camp. You made friends your whole life. But if you look back at how you made friends, you didn't go right to asking people for things. You made a friend. So that's why when people are like, "What's the secret? What's the sauce? Tell me the thing to do. What's the hashtag? I want it now. I want those relationships." It's like, have you ever done that? No. So that's essentially why when I first started my mentorship program, I was just teaching, because you can tell I love to teach. And in year 2, in 2017, I said, oh, no. A huge part of this, if I really want to help artists, I'm going to have to bring my friends. I'm going to have to bring my friend Alexandra, who's head of music at DreamWorks. And I'm going to have to bring in Gary Calamar, who did the music for all the 6 Feet Under and House and True Blood. And I'm going to have to, because that's really what they need from me. And they need me not to be a middleman. They need me to actually connect them. And so that's what we do. We're very transparent. I bring those people in. I let them hear your songs. If you want to make deals with them, you make deals with them. We don't need to get involved and take commission. So we just run our program very differently. But every single person that's in my network, and again, I don't know everybody. No one knows everybody. They're lying when they say they do. But the people I know, I care about those people. I know when their wife is sick. I know when their grandmother passed away. I know when their kids are starting school and they just moved and it's scary. Like these are my friends. And so I go out of my way to care, right? And each one of these relationships took finesse and time and thinking about things. So whenever I would send an email, I wouldn't talk about myself and then drop a link and be like, "Listen to my songs. Thanks so much." I'm right back. This is the worst. Right back a month later. "How come you haven't listened to my song?" Who are you? I don't work for you. See ya, right? So instead, I would send people notes that were much more personable, and I would ask them a specific question that they could answer very quickly. And I didn't ask them to listen to my music, because that would be an ask, right? We want to make deposits. And so I would spend every interaction seeing how I could connect and how I could help solve a problem. And it made me stand out. And polite persistence. Right? Polite, but persistent. Because how many people they're like, "Oh, I reached out." Who'd you reach out to? "Well, I reached out to one person." When? 6 years ago, I never heard back. Okay, so that's not gonna work, right? But what if you could be polite and persistent, right? And so Tim Ferriss talks about, and I put this in my book, actually, there's like a whole email template, which really speaks to caring about the other person, where you're really short and sweet. And again, your job is to make a connection with the person. Your job is not to try to get that person to help you. That blows it every time. That's like the guy who you're on your first date and this guy's already trying to get to bed with you and you're just like, I don't like, there's no, what do you, yeah, no, right? Like we don't go right to the ask. And that's why most people who are in business don't know what it means to sell, because sales shouldn't be selling. Sales should be giving. Because if you give enough, the sale, if it's supposed to happen, happens. So there's no need to sell anything. Like most people are like, I can't send emails. I feel like I'm burdening that person. I can't cold call a studio. I feel like I'm a burden. Well, you are a burden if you're trying to make a sale or trying to get them to do something and they don't know you. That does feel weird, because human beings feel weird about doing things like that before they know a person. But what if you completely turned it around and your job was to show up and see how you could be of service and let that person know you really value what they're doing. It's clear that you know their work. It's clear that you listen to something. Maybe you're thanking them for introducing you to a song because of the work that they do. And then maybe you ask them a super simple question and then you say, you do not have to get back to me. I know how busy you are, but I was just curious, what are you looking for this season? Because I write a lot of music that's one stop and easy to clear because I don't have a publisher or something like that, right? So that over time, that kind of attitude and that kind of approach starts to create a relationship. But then you don't get impatient and go, well, how come nothing happened? You make a lot of these deposits. It's sort of like gardening, right? You keep watering the land and you're working on lots of relationship building. And then while you're working, one starts to sprout over here. And how does that happen? Well, you think of like first every 7 deposits, you make a withdrawal. So you sent an email, a really good email, kind. It's not about you. You're not trying to get anything. Then maybe the second thing is you see this person on a panel and you reach out and say, I really just wanted to say thank you because I really appreciate it. Or you hear them on a podcast, you send them another email to say thanks. And you maybe they talked about The Great Gatsby and you send in the mail a copy of that. I'm really not joking, right? You start to make a relationship with this person. Or maybe you ask this person for, you say to this person, I really want to grow as an artist. And so you do not have to write back. I know how busy you are. Please do not think you have to write back. But I would love you to tell me what's not working about this because something's not working and I want to get better. And then the person maybe is like, oh, and then maybe you actually take the note and a month later you follow up and say, you've really been such a mentor to me and I did this. And then you send flowers or a cupcake to that person's office to say, thank you so much. You did not have to do that. You don't owe me anything. Start to make relationships, right? So that's why I said yesterday, even though I write songs, I think the best thing I do is know how to care about people. So that's what happened. So years ago, I was sending emails. Sometimes people would open them. Sometimes people wouldn't. Sometimes people would just respond. Sometimes they wouldn't. And then I did the research and I wrote a really good EP. Because here's the thing. Let's say someone finally listens to you and the song is shit. It's going to be bad, right? So you're doing all this work to try to create a relationship. And then it's finally the moment where you can say, would you like to listen to my song? And the song's not well produced and it's not good. It's over then. But what if you did the work and you didn't write 12 songs? You did that process I told you, the research, brain dump, co-write, record. You did that once a week and you decided you were going to do that for 6 months, which is what we do, a lot of what we do in our program. And so you've written 12 songs, 16 songs, 40, 20, whatever it is. And you pulled from those the best 5 and you make an EP. And then you do the research to figure out, you did the research, not just to write these great songs, but you did the research to find a great producer. Like you guys should know this, just like with fantasy baseball, knowing who's on what team, you should be clear who produced the Katie Herzig song. And I'll let you guys figure that out. And I'll let you figure out who produced, there's a few other ones that we just talked about. But you should know those people. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but there's like a few producers. And then you figured out how to really understand that production. Or maybe you reached out to some of those producers, which is what I did. And that's how I found my producer from my EP, because he produced Ingrid Michaelson's Be Okay record. And I said, oh, he'd be perfect because he gets it. It's good. It's authentic sounding. That's where I'm headed. And I reached out to him. But I had reached out to 3 other producers who I found the same way. And they said no. And one didn't respond, but he did. Then I built this beautiful EP that I felt so proud of. And I built these relationships. And I wanted them so bad to hear these songs because I knew if they actually listened, they would love them. And I wasn't just like hopeful, I was certain. When we talked about certainty, I was certain, right? I'd gotten the feedback, I'd validated the idea. There was a lot of focus groups, right? I had played it for people I respected. That's a lot of what we do in our program. But then we also do the connecting, right? We bring in the music supervisors directly. So we take out a lot of the work that I had to do to make each relationship. But one thing that I did then is I finished my EP, and this was my EP. It was called You're Home to Me. And I made this little PDF, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not a graphic designer. I can't do anything like that. But I made this little, I made this girl with a guitar and a plus sign and a Starbucks. And I said, email me your Starbucks order. I said, on a point in date and time, I'll show up at your place, and then I'll bring you some music. And I said, click here to listen to the EP. And I said, RSVP for your mochas and music. And I sent this to like 68 people. And half the people didn't respond or said no. And then about 28 people said, okay, you could bring me a coffee. You know, again, thinking about them. And I remember thinking at the time, this was like 2011, I was like, I don't want to ask them for stuff. Like, what could I bring them that would be like, what could I do? And I was like, well, what if I just brought them a coffee? And so not only did I bring them a coffee, but I had the right record. I knew, like, as soon as they actually listened, they would go, she's awesome. Like, she's not just like coming in with like a demo. She's not coming in not knowing what we do. Like, I had already done all the work. And when I went in, I also had a lot of empathy for them. I didn't say like, cool, so let me chill with you guys for an hour. I just dropped off the coffee and I was like ready to walk out. And a few of them were like, sit down. And so for some people, I stayed for like a minute and I took the cues. And for some people, we wound up talking, and we talked about things that had nothing to do with music, right? Because that's me. I'm not going to sit there and be like, so when do you need my songs? What are you going to pay? We didn't even mention the music. You know, I just went to like, what's the best part of your job? And do you have any idea how much I admire the fact that you help indie artists and you don't care how many downloads we have and you're real music fans, and you really should get more credit because you're like the unsung heroes of the whole business, and that's how people get signed. And they really felt like I saw them. And I made friends with a lot of them because they're cool. And would you believe that within a year, I had 28 placements, which means that every single person I met with in person licensed a song. And every song on that EP was licensed more than once. Mic drop. So that was the beginning of, that was the big beginning for me. But I've done other things, talking about Third Door. I've gotten on a flight and flown to Minnesota, you guys, and met with not just Target and Best Buy and General Mills, but I've reached out and figured out who are the music supervisors who are all, you know, huddled around those big box stores in the middle of the country who take on those clients who are the ad agencies. And I've gone and met with them. And I've gone to New York City and done an ad trip, and Boston and Seattle and you name it. Like, I've shown up. And I've done other things. I created a little web series at one point called Music Soup. And I would say to people like, well, we're shooting this documentary about supervisors. And I meant it. I was like, I'm going to bring you soup and ask you some questions. Like, how do you figure out how to make a relationship? And then there was a lot of just like networking and going to panels. And so it's not overnight. There's no like, you just make relationships. You know, how'd you make a relationship with your best friend in the world? You just called her, right? And it was over in 1 sec. No, it takes trust and time. And yeah. And a lot of people will tell you that's why it's great to have a licensing agent, because hopefully your licensing agent has those relationships. But what we like to do in my program is not only are we at Capture the Moon licensing agents, so we're pitching, we just did 3 licenses last week for our new artists, which is really cool. But not only do we like to license the songs that we develop these artists in our program, but we also like to direct you directly to other licensing agents as well as to the supervisors directly, which no one ever did that for me. And like I said before, I don't think other places do that. I don't think they do. I can't say, because I've never done Taxi or Songtrade or anything like that. I've never done it. They're probably awesome. But that extra mile of like, let's connect, because then why would you need them? I guess they wouldn't be the intermediary. But for us, that's not my thing, right? Like, I'm not in the business of like trying to make commissions off of people. That's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it for the process, the teaching, the mentorship, the helping artists actually crack through all of this stuff. I also feel like if you're just pitching music and you're paying to submit, but the quality isn't there, like, or you're self as an artist, you're not there mentally, you don't have the right system around you, you're going to give up, right? Or it's just not going to happen, and you're going to get rejected, and you're just going to be out of there. So we do things a little bit differently, and we can talk more about pitching tomorrow, but we're over by 15 minutes, and I'll see if we can take a couple questions. How you guys doing right now? I haven't even gotten to read your comments, but I know there's a bunch in there. I'll go back and read later. Have you guys enjoyed this session so far? I like teaching this stuff, can you tell? So talk to me. Who has a question? I see a couple questions about other companies, and I don't know, because I just never did that. I went the third door route, and then it took me a long time, like each relationship. Like I remember how when I finally met Frankie Pine, it was like I had already sent her an email every month for a year. Then I finally got in. Then like each relationship, I was like collecting them. It took me time. So I just went that way. And in the end, I still don't know everybody, but I kind of do it that way. So I didn't go through a Songtradr or a Taxi. And now I'm just so grateful that we'll show you later in the week. I'll ask my team if we can pull it together, but we have so many artists from our program who feel like that's one of the greatest blessings of this work, is because I think they trust me. So I think that they want to be associated with, I think what happens is music supervisors who come into my program, they know the way I work and the way I am. So I think they trust that my artists are going to be respectful and humble and hardworking and kind. And so they're much more apt to be like, let me give you my email address. If you're working with Kathy, I kind of feel like you probably really have it dialed in. I don't think they feel that way necessarily about, at the whole world at large. And I've worked really hard to make sure that is like pristine, because your reputation is everything. Like the second you're not like that, you don't have integrity, it doesn't last long, So yeah, it's been so beautiful to see people really succeeding that way. And I like making those connections for them directly. Like I'm happy when that happens. We had, we had somebody, her name is Jen Malone. She's actually a really big time music supervisor. She actually won, the music supervisors were not on the Emmy or Oscar ballot for a long, long, long time, which is ridiculous because they put so many other categories on there, and music supervision is huge. Like soundtracks are huge pieces, like and they didn't have it on there. And they finally, this music supervision guild finally got them on there, thanks to a friend of mine, Maureen Crow, who was president of the guild and made that her like life's mission. And Jen Malone was the first person to win an Emmy for music supervision. And she was at one of our workshops, and she said to our class, I need a song about, this. If you want to send it to me, here's my email address. And one of our students got a license that way. It's like, great, that's the way it should be. If I can help, I know, like I said to you on day one, I know what it's like when you just feel like giving up on yourself. And having watched my mom deteriorate like that, it's like, if I can change someone's life, and I think it's because we need more music in the world. Like, we need more music in the world, and we need more artists who are fulfilled. I feel like sometimes I think that this is my political mission, because if every person woke up every day and did more of what they love, I don't think we'd have problems. I think there's just a lot of unfulfilled people. So then they fight about things. But what if people were just busy? They were so busy making things and being creative and feeling in the flow state that they just didn't have time to do all. I think it just comes from feeling unfulfilled. Anyway, that's a whole soapbox. So questions. Brandon, smart guy. What's your Starbucks order is what he said. And by the way, I want you guys to know this is always happening, where people think there's no way, so forget it, I'm just going to give up. You can stand out so easily because most people don't give a crap about anyone else. So the people who do, and the people who are consistent and patient and continue. One of the things I did is when I would be reaching out to music supervisors, because I didn't have the Kathy Hedler mentorship life. I didn't have that. So I would just be reaching out. I would always have something new to send. So instead of sending the same song 3 years in a row, have you heard it yet? Have you heard it? I would just be like, great, another month went by. It's another excuse to send something new. Hey, they haven't heard this. So I can, instead of seeming crazy, like I already sent you this, but here's a new song I wrote and I've been watching what you're doing, and I'm, you know, and ask them something or whatever it is. But again, I really think going the way of not sending the music and instead asking them what they need and how they are and finding out more about them and showing up and finding ways to serve is such a, I think it takes longer, it seems, but it actually works. Where the other thing, I don't know if it even works. So I think you feel like it's going to take less time, but I think it takes longer. Have you ever had success reaching out via social media? Again, it depends how you reach out. You know, like if you just send people these same emails that they get all day long, they get so fatigued with hearing like, here's my music. I don't even think that it like registers. So it depends how you reach out. You guys are so sweet. Stacy said, so your first 28 syncs were for songs you had already written. Would you say the majority of placements that your team are getting are specifically writing supervisors' requests rather than existing songs under your catalog? So let me just be clear. When I say songs I wrote them with picture in mind, right? Those are the songs that I brought in. I didn't bring in the songs from my record deal days. I didn't bring in just the songs of me like with Heartache. I had done the research, written a song, done it with a co-writer, produced it, gone in with reference tracks. And I did that, let's say 16 times, and then picked the best 5 songs of that. And so actually that EP, it's called You're Home to Me. The first song, let's see if I can remember, is Gonna Be Happy, which we licensed to an ad. We also licensed it to the last episode, the series finale of One Tree Hill. The song You're Home to Me, we licensed that to a Christmas movie with, I think Jenny Garth is in it. I think it's called Holidays, D-A-Z-E. It was like the end song. And we also licensed it to an ad. And then the next song on that EP is called, the next song in there is called So This Is Love. We licensed that to Drop Dead Diva, and then a movie overseas. And what are the other 2 songs? Oh, there was like a more like somber song called I Can Hear My Heart, which was like a more of like a reflective song. We licensed that also to Drop Dead Diva. I think we did 2 of those licenses. And then what else is on that record? So This Is Love, Gonna Be Happy, You're Home. This is 2000. This is a while ago. It's hard to remember. There's a 5th song on there. There's a 5th song on there. I gotta figure out what that 5th song is. Anyway, we license all those songs. I was trying to show you how, just in terms of like the themes. Oh, the 5th song was Count on Me, which is the biggest song on the EP. I can't believe I forgot. And Count on Me was one of the first themes I ever found. And that was the song I told you on day 1 that I wrote that song after I had surgery when I was trying to get pregnant, and they told me I wasn't gonna be able to have kids. And I wrote that for the daughter or the son I knew one day I would have. And it's such a pretty song. And my daughter, we actually conceived her a month later, and she knows like I wrote that song for her. And we licensed that song. You know what's crazy? We wound up licensing that song to an ad for a watch, which was the very fancy Rolex. But then we licensed it to 2 scenes in 2 different shows. One was a show called Body of Proof with Dana Delaney. And it's a scene where she's sitting with her daughter, talking to her daughter about school. And it's a really beautiful scene because she's like, Lacey, I heard you didn't come to take the test. Why would you not go? And she says to her mom, because I'm not as good a scientist as you are, and I didn't want to let you down if I got a bad grade. And her mom says to her, Lace, it's impossible. You could never let me down. I'm gonna make me want to cry. And then they play the song. La, 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 count on me, count on me. And then we licensed it also to a scene in Switched at Birth. And it was like a big moment in the show. And it was between the daughter and her mom. And I thought that was like so trippy that it got licensed to 2 scenes with 2, and it was like daughter and mom. Isn't that weird? It's like they knew. So yeah, when you say licensed songs that I wrote for licensing, I did. Those were the songs. And so we'll talk tomorrow about how it works. I'm going to share with you actually some searches that we get and what they look like and what they sound like. And, you know, you'll hear real searches, but people sometimes ask me like, So do you write a song when you get a search like Cheerios needs a song about sunshine and summer? And so we anticipate that, right? We're researching ahead of time because when they're asking us for that, they need that song by the end of the day. So it's not exactly like, yeah, it's like a factory. You just get a request, burger up. Like, it's not like that. It's about spending the time ahead of time, working on your craft as an artist, working on understanding who you're playing to, and working on the production elements so that they're great, and getting ahead of it so that you're building towards that. And a lot of artists who've worked with me, believe me, they know the songs that they need, and they're working on them. And then there's like having a song that's about home, and then there's having a great song about home. And you may have done the assignment, because we give people assignments in the class, but sometimes they need to write 3 more songs until that song is not just good, it's great. And they start to really write a great song, right? It's not just about having the word and like clapping it out. So, so much here. Rich, you're so sweet. I want to cook you dinner. See? Empathy. Is it helpful to have different versions or sections of the song pieced out and labeled in separate files? So, no. I mean, sometimes people will let us know, like, this really hooky part comes at, 47 seconds in. But most music supervisors are going to listen for, like, if they're generous, they're going to listen for 10 seconds. It just has to be great. And that's why I wanted you to hear Tune Yards. That's why I wanted you to hear Stolen Jars, because like right from the beginning, even Katie Herzig, dun, 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 right? Like there's something going on and it's beautiful. Like it can be simple. It just has to be mic'd in a way where it feels important, or something feels really catchy or earwormy right off the bat. And that's what takes it's good to be in a situation. That's why in this program, it's about really cultivating, getting the feedback really. And that's why I keep mentioning it too, because I'm such a straight shooter, and I kind of find it gross when people don't get that there should be a reference for really growing and mastering something. And I don't want to be the person on the internet who's like, you take this, you add water, and that's it. Like that would actually like undermine everything that we do and undermine everyone who's been successful, because it takes away from the depth of what it actually takes. And that's why I said we don't want everybody in the program. We want people who are going to work hard. But I'm saying it because I don't want it to be misleading, like cool. So like she said, write a song about home, and like then I sent it. And no, I want you to know it's not just about sending it, right? Like you need to be prepared that you need to make relationships with people. You need to be prepared to think about their needs and not yours. And you need to be prepared to anticipate what they need and write the songs that really go the distance. Don't just write. If someone's gonna pay you $70,000 for a song, they probably need it to be great, right? If they just needed you to, like, I said this before, but if they just needed you to like write the word home and clap your hands, they can have their editor do that during lunch. Like they want an artist. They want you to get it. And it takes a little, when my husband and I took a dance class before our wedding. I remember when she like taught us like the waltz, and then she taught us whatever. And the first few times you do it, you're kind of stiff. You're learning the moves. But then after a while, you're not thinking about the moves. It's kind of in your body. There's muscle memory. And now you can actually like flow. And now you can actually bring some of yourself to it. And now you do it again 4 times later. Now you're actually just having fun with it. That's everything. That's learning guitar. That's learning how to drive. That's learning this. It's anything. So it's not just about like, yeah, I do the steps. Okay, well, after a while, you're not doing the steps. You're not thinking about changing your hand to get the chord on the guitar. When you're starting out, you're like, okay, and then you go to here, F, A minor. Okay, after a while, now you can like, what are you bringing to it? That's where that's where the artistry is born. And that's where I think it really is priceless to be in an environment where we actually can grow. Because I think, like we said on day one, everybody knows Michael Phelps' name, but we don't really know the guy who came in second. I can't tell you that guy's name. And it's like a half of a second. So I think sometimes good is what people are shooting for. And I think people need to shoot for great, because I don't think good cuts it. I think there's so much of everything that we can't be good. I think we need that edge. I think we need the 2 millimeter difference. And I think we get that edge by being around people who've gone before, who can go, okay, here's what's going to make all the difference. You need reverb on that. Or what's going to make all the difference is that the chorus is too busy. Just change the lyric. You have the melody. You got whatever that 2 millimeter difference is. That's why people make it, they go the distance. So, all right, it's 1:30, lots of good stuff here. Diana said, how can someone become one of your students? So the 6-month program, we'll talk about it later on in the week, because I still want to just keep giving to you guys stuff. I think, how valuable has this been for you guys? Are you enjoying these sessions? Because I don't hold anything back. This is not a carrot and a stick, or whatever they call it. I just share everything. So tomorrow we are going to look at real searches and requests that have come in. And on Friday, we're going to pull it all together and say, okay, we've gone through this day, this day, this day, this day. Let's talk about what you do now. Like, where do you go now? What are the biggest obstacles? Because we asked you that on day 1, and we want to be able to give you answers for that on day 5. And I hope that going through these few days, you're starting to really, there's like a break in the clouds, and you're going, oh, I'm starting to see things. And it's like a kaleidoscope, right? You just keep turning it, and the picture just becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Like when you're developing a negative photo into it, you start to develop it. So we will, don't worry, there'll be time. I will definitely let you guys know how you can be part of the program. But I want you to get the most out of this. And then, yeah, the program, it's called 6-Figure Songwriting. And that's what it's done for people. And you don't need to talk to me about it anyway. You can talk to the people who've been in it. It speaks for itself, which is great. What was I going to say? And yeah, so we've got 2 more days. Who's with me? Who's feeling pumped for 2 more days? I love you guys. Nick Phelps is in the house. Nick is awesome. Nick has been in the program, and we did a Nordstrom spot with your song, and he's so awesome. Nick is so great. Nick is one of those guys who I'm like, no excuses. Like, he's got 4 kids. He was in the program. He was finishing school, getting his degree, and working. And he used to wake up and do these videos that he would post in our private group for our program. And he'd be like, you guys, 5 a.m., crushing it, just listen to Kathy, I'm doing it, and then he collaborated with somebody else in the program, and they got a spot. And you're just so talented and so sweet, and I love you. Anyways, so all right, so we got 2 more days. Hope you guys are feeling pumped. We're going to send you some homework to do. Are you guys getting those emails? We've been sending you the email every day with the replay and with the homework. And so we'll look for your responses to the homework. We're going to ask you to play with some of the songwriting process and just play with it a little bit. And you'll see, we're going to ask you in the homework. We'll post it in the thread and we'll email it to you. But basically, you're going to be asked to see if you can pick a theme, do a little brain dump, and see if you can kind of just get in there a little bit. You'll see. And we're also going to be asking you like what your biggest takeaways so far are halfway in. What your biggest takeaways are halfway in. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to try to reply to as many comments as I can. And yeah, you guys are awesome. This has been so much fun. Really, such a joy for me too. So it's win-win. And thank you guys. Some of you are writing the kindest things, and believe me, like it stands out. My team and I sometimes are taking screenshots going, look what this person just said. That's so generous. Because a lot of people are like, you know what most people are like. It's interesting. It doesn't take much to stand out. It's kind of a sad commentary, but it's also kind of an advantage for nice people. So I hope you guys have a great night. I will be back here tomorrow at noon Pacific Standard Time, and I will be back here on Friday at noon Pacific Standard Time. We've got 2 more days. I've got so much more stuff. I don't know if you realized it, but we started day 1. Every day I try to bring you chunks of good stuff. So there's more. There's more, and it's free. So I would say take advantage. Having a great night, and I will see you guys tomorrow.